Now I've got to stop smiling so I can do my speech. Okay. All right, listen. I consider myself to be a pretty smart kid. I feel good about my life and about the things I've been able to accomplish. That is largely in part due to people investing their time and their energy into me by recognizing my strengths and helping me to expand on them. However, I have strengths that people are familiar with. I feel comfortable in a social setting, and I do my best to empathize with people. I'm good at math. I'm decently athletic. These are strengths that people have helped me to expand on because, well, they are easy to recognize in a person. I have strengths that one would consider to be normal. My weaknesses are also rather normal. I have hints of greed and selfishness in my personality that I'm trying to do away with. I'm very forgetful. I sometimes leave my room with the intention of getting a drink, walk into the bathroom, open the medicine cabinet, and stare blankly into it, wondering where the orange juice is. Though my weaknesses can cause major setbacks in life, they are relatively common in people, and therefore I'm identified by my strengths. I'm seen as that nice kid who excels at math, and I am totally okay with that. But it's not fair. Students who are considered to be sped don't always have strengths like mine that you can easily recognize in a person. The same goes for their weaknesses. I went to middle school with a student who was considered sped, who could look at a picture once and tell you the exact details of the same picture down to the millimeter 2 hours later. I also met a friend, Max, who would figure out scientific formulas before the teacher actually explained them. Both of these students were absolutely brilliant in their own unique way. Unfortunately, their strengths were so unique that they often slipped through the cracks, as so many sped kids do. Both of these students had trouble communicating with others. And so, rather than them being identified by their outstanding and unique strengths, they were identified by their unique weaknesses, as so many sped kids are. The SPED, or Special Education Program, was developed for students who are unable to learn in the normal environment. And so the first thing that the word SPED implies is a weakness, the inability for said student to learn in the given environment. Our public school system has worked exceptionally well for many, many, many years. It accepts a vast array of students and provides them with a good, free education that they can turn into a wonderful and successful life. However, there's one major flaw. It only accommodates to one type of learner. In fact, most classes and curricula are constructed around that learner's strengths and weaknesses. And as a result, they do great. But what is to be done about all of the other types of learners with different strengths and different weaknesses? Well, our solution for that thus far has been to group them together and call them SPED. Now, this method seems very unfair and needs refining. First of all, by grouping these kids together, we are assuming that they have more in common with each other than they do with kids who aren't considered SPED. And that in itself is a questionable proposition, but when you put it beside the fact that these groupings suggest that someone confined to a wheelchair will learn the same as someone with some form of autism, it seems almost counterintuitive. If it is a law that kids go to school, then it should be equally enforced that we are able to accommodate to them regardless of their strengths and weaknesses. Another problem has to do with the human need to classify things. A title given to someone will have an effect on them for their whole life. Take your name, for example. Or no, take my name, for example. My name is Landon Beard. That is the title I was given at birth, and it will stay with me until the day I die. That title dictates my life, because when someone hears the words Landon Beard together, they will immediately think of me and any characteristics, real or fake, they have given to me. The title is tied to my very existence, just like the title SPED is tied to the existence of so many others. And because SPED is somehow synonymous with weakness in our society, that bond won't be a positive one. Just think about that. Think about the thing that is the very hardest for you. For me, it's walking up the stairs without tripping. No, seriously. For me, it's not letting my competitiveness get the best of me. Now think about that thing that is so hard for you, that thing that you try to keep a secret from everyone. Now imagine if that was immediately apparent when someone met you. There are students with extreme disabilities, students who need someone there for them at all times. And their greatest weakness, the inability to take care of themselves, is immediately apparent when you meet them. And that often leads to very negative events. For we are so concerned with our differences and so obsessed with their weaknesses that we often fail to see them as equals. And that's where the name calling comes in. Remember that guy Max had talked about earlier, who would figure out the scientific formulas in his head? Of course you do. That's remarkable. Once you got past a little bit of social awkwardness that he had, he was one of the sweetest kids you'd ever meet. A very real and pure human being because he didn't know how to be fake. But there were students who didn't understand him, who didn't understand his strengths, who were afraid of him, who would call him names like retard. And I would just sit there and say to myself, what are you thinking? That kid could destroy you with his mind. He could disassemble your body without even looking at you. And do you have the audacity to call him such a hurtful name just because he's different than you? And that is the greatest problem of all, not just in this instance, but universally to humans: discrimination. I don't care if something as big as the public school system sets you up for it. You have no right to discriminate against someone regardless of the circumstances, especially when they're just different. Imagine what we could do with the world if everyone's strengths were identified and used. The range of talents among human beings is unbelievable. But it can only be utilized if we can learn to acknowledge the differences in each other. You can't expect everyone to know everything that you do or to be everything that you are. But if we can learn to accept each other and to combine our talents, then we can triumph, accomplish much greater feats, and unleash brilliance. Thank you.